Welcome guys. I'm just going to do a quick example build of how to build your ships out to protect against transport losses. So this applies to any campaign, but in particular the Germany campaign in the 1920s onwards, because the British seem to have a higher power projection, mainly due to the fact that you've got lower money, naval funds. So the main thing is you need quite a few battleships or battle cruisers, but battleships work better because they've got higher resistance and higher stability, which means that they're harder to destroy and they have better base accuracy. So I would say just ignore battle cruisers, unless you really want to use them. So you're going to want a battleship that can fill out its displacement, so you wouldn't go for this one. So you choose the best battleship that you can have the max displacement on. Now you're going to want it to have maximum range. Maximum bulkheads is nice, so you can have that if you want. Not completely necessary, but you can have that. And always go for standard crew quarters so you can take a few losses without taking any penalties. So the main thing is you don't want to be spending too much money on these. You want to keep them as cheap as possible. So you don't want diesel engines if you're in the 30s or 40s, because the further up you go, the more the cost increases like dramatically. So you can keep going up until you get to diesel, but I wouldn't recommend going any higher. You're going to be using these for long range combat, so you don't want to be adding things like this, as that's going to just increase your costs too much. So you don't want any maneuverability things. Any of these really, they just cost too much. So all you're going to want is enough negative smoke interference. So you're going to want oil 1, forced or balanced spoilers if you've got them, and up to diesel engines, but no higher. So you're going to be long range with this ship, so you are going to want the best towers you've got. Now, some of these towers, like this one that have got barbettes on, don't necessarily fit the guns that you want on them. So you see that's Mark 1 and that's Mark 3, so you wouldn't go for that one. You choose this one, so have a look to see if that'll fit on, which it won't. So you don't really want that tower. Have a look to see if there's a similar tower with base accuracy. So that one. And as you can see, it's a lot smaller, so you can fit more on your ship. Doesn't take up as much space. And it has similar stats, so 10 base accuracy, 11 base accuracy. That's also got long range accuracy, and that hasn't. And the smoke interference isn't too much different. So that's the one that we want. It's actually got better tower spotting as well, so it's actually better accuracy. Not accuracy, better spotting. Okay, so we're now going to do the funnels. So we've got negative 62. So we could have plus 2.8, which will give us a slight negative base accuracy, or minus 4.7. So let's go for the minus 4.7 and see how much engine efficiency that we can get. Now, with these long range ships, they don't need to be that fast. So as you can see, I can increase this quite dramatically and it's not dropping our engine efficiency. So I like 30, but it's not completely necessary. But even at 30, we're not dropping below engine efficiency. So if you want, you can drop this funnel down to save on a bit of weight and a bit of cash. Personally, I find 66 an acceptable number if you don't need the operational range. But because we need the operational range with these battleships, then you're going to want to keep it at 100 if you can. Okay, so that's the funnel that we're going for. So we've got our smoke interference, we've got the towers and the funnel, the speeds, the range, bulkheads and crew. So now all you really need from now on is accuracy, guns and armour. You don't need any protection. Obviously you're going to want your armour, but you don't need any of these protection modules because you're going to be staying far away from them. The only thing that you might want is citadel or barbettes if your flash fire chance is really high. The only reason it's this high at the moment because we haven't added a gun, so it hasn't actually given us an accurate number yet. So we can add our guns on, which gives us 6. Now, the amount of guns is usually that you want is usually between 8 and 12. So I wouldn't go any higher. Barrels, I should say, barrels on your main guns. So I wouldn't go any higher than 12, and I definitely wouldn't go any lower than 8 if you can. Personally, I like 4 times 3, but it's not completely necessary to have that many. So we've got a flash fire chance of 6%, so if you wanted, you can take some citadel to reduce it, but I'd only add this on at the end if you need to, like if you've got the spare weight. Definitely focus on your armour values first before you start messing about with that. Just make sure that your guns have got good firing arcs. Okay, so that is basically the main setup there. So you're going to want the best armament. Don't choose anything that will increase your flash fire or ammo detonation chance. Because they're the only real threats to your ship is getting critically hit. So always keep that as low as possible. And then you're going to want the best rangefinder. Never go for the stereoscopic because it doesn't currently work properly. So you're always better taking the coincidence. Okay, you don't need the acoustics with this ship because if you're getting shot at with torpedoes with a battleship, you've done something wrong to begin with. You should be staying out of torpedo range, so you shouldn't ever need this. If you get into torpedo range, you should already be doing a preemptive evasion with them. So the idea with battleships is stay out of torpedo range. So yeah, you don't need this. Okay, next thing up, the same. You don't really need secondary guns because you're staying out of torpedo range. So you only really need these main guns on the battleship. So the next thing is you're going to want your armor quite high. Now, there's two different ways that you can do this. You can do it a bit of an exploit way, or you can just do it properly. So I'll just do it properly for now, and then I'll copy it and show you the exploit way. So I usually do keep these at 3, but you can do the exploit version, which I'll show you afterwards. So you want between 12 and 6 on these, or 14 and 7. And then you want these between 2 and 3. So always go for 14, 7, 3 if you can afford it. If you can't, then drop it down to 12, 6, 2. So make sure you armour up your turret really well as well. You want it the same as your main belt and main deck, so 14, 7. As you can see, we've gone slightly over here. Okay, so that's basically how you would build out these ships. So I haven't balanced it yet, so just quickly balance out the main towers. Just check the firing arcs again, which are fine. Okay, so that is your ship now. Obviously, if you want all of these protection modules, you're going to have to strip either guns or armour off, and it's not worth it. It's just simply not worth it. The same as these maneuverability mods. You don't need them. Now I quickly checked to see how much difference this range made on your power projection. Basically, having this range up to full instead of a minimum gave me a quarter more power projection. So each ship was doing 20, well it was actually 23%, but each ship was doing almost 25% more power projection just by increasing this one stat. So it's not entirely necessary because obviously you've got 8% more to spend on other things if you want. But really, if you were going to lower this down, you wouldn't want to just spend this 8% on other things, because that 8% of weight isn't going to increase your power projection at all. So if you were going to drop this down, you'd be better off just reducing your displacement and making your ship cheaper. And then that way you can build more of the same type of ship, and that might be better off than just putting this range stat, putting the saved weight from the range stat into other things. So yeah, that's your power projection ship basically. This is going to be what protects your economy from taking loads of transport losses. So that is the normal way of building this ship out. So the exploit way of building it out. This is a bit gamey, so it's up to you if you want to do it or not. But because you're using it at long range, you basically don't need fore and aft belt. And you don't need fore and aft deck. So you can just simply remove all of them stats if you want. You can now, same with superstructure as well. So you can now put this remaining weight into main deck and top armour to protect from plunging fire. So that's what I would normally do. And then if you want, you can just reduce your displacement down. There you go. So that would be the gamey way of building a power projection ship out. But it's not entirely necessary to do this. So it's up to you if you wanted to do it or not. But we'll build one and see the difference in power projection. Okay, so now the next ship is going to be the ship that is doing all the hard work for you, basically. So this ship you want to be as manoeuvrable as possible, so it can dodge all the torpedoes coming at you. Now, unfortunately, in 1920 with Germany, you don't get access to anything lower or higher than the Armoured Cruiser 5, so you're stuck at this displacement not being full, which is a big problem, but it's just something you have to deal with. Really, you should have access to the Armoured Cruiser 4 and 3, which has full displacement, but it's not how it is, unfortunately. So you don't need the range stat on this one, you can save the weight, because you're going to need the weight to spend on manoeuvrability and armour. So same again, maximum bulkheads, standard crew quarters. So that is going to give you more space. So you might be better off taking that one. With this one, you're only going to be able to fit 2 main guns on. Where with this one, you might be able to fit 3. So I think this one might be better off. Basically, every time you start the campaign, you start with random tech, so your ships aren't always going to look the same. You are going to have to adapt a little bit. So if we check out our smoke interference, we've got -5 or plus 4.3. So we'll have a look at the -5. We've got a 41.8 engine efficiency, so that's not great, but that's not much better, 44.8. So you may as well just take the 41.8 and not get the base accuracy penalty. Okay, so you're going to want all of these manoeuvrability mods if you can afford them. Afford them in terms of weight now, not cost. Never go above Augs 2 because they're just too expensive. And never choose the electric steering because of the negative, the penalties. It's not worth the penalties. You may as well just go for Electric Hydro 2 or Electric Hydro 1. Now, in terms of guns, you want either 9 or 11. 9 is actually better at long range accuracy, but it's worse at short range accuracy, and it does considerably less damage. So after trying different ones, I've decided that 11's probably the better all-round gun. There's a chance you might be able to fit another one at the front there, but it's unlikely. You're probably better off just sticking with the 3. So just check your turrets can aim quite well with the aiming arc. So yeah, if we did try and force another turret in front, we're just going to get a terrible offset weight. So there's no point in doing that. So we have a look at our flash fire. It's only 4%. Anything below 5 should be fine. So you don't necessarily need these barbettes and citadels and stuff. Now I'd say never go above advanced hydraulics because of all of the penalties to your flash fire chance. So you do actually want the acoustics on this now because this one is the ship that's going to be dodging all the torpedoes. Okay, so armouring up your ship is the most important thing with these armoured cruisers. So you're going to want it at 12.6 if you can. Oops. So 12.6, 6, 6, and then preferably 3.3.3. So we've still got quite a lot of percentage, so we're doing alright. And then again with these, you're going to want it at least 12.6, and then potentially even higher, because the majority of your flash fires are going to come from turret or main guns destroyed, basically. So just put it a little bit higher than your main belt and main deck if you can. So there we go, we're practically there. So now you could, if you wanted, take some of these for the negative flash fire chance, but it's not entirely necessary. The anti-torpedo is nice. It's nice to have. Don't get me wrong, but in my opinion, you're better off learning how to dodge torpedoes and saving the weight and putting it into armor and guns. And most importantly, with this ship, maneuverability. Okay, so that's how you build out your armored cruiser. So let's just quickly change this back so we've got the offset in the right place. Right, so now, with this ship being a close range ship, you can, if you want, stick a load of secondary fire on. So you could strip a bit of weight off and put some secondary guns on. And also, to make it a threat in terms of attacking the enemy battleships, you can go for these torpedoes as well. So this is like the base model. So if we wanted, we can just save this design and then make a new one. So taking torpedoes is always a good thing to take out the enemy big ships, so we can start off with that. I always stick with standard. Increased is just too expensive. Reduced doesn't really save too much weight. So standard is always a nice number to go for. Fast is always good. And you may as well just take the biggest. So now we can strip a bit off to accommodate this new torpedo threat. And then if we want, we can add some secondary guns. Now, I don't find 2-inch and 3-inch particularly helpful, because you really need to get close for these to be helpful. So personally, I'd just stick to 5-inch guns, because you don't need to get quite so close, so you're not in so much threat from torpedoes at the 5-inch range. So yeah, if you want, just stick for at 5-inch range. Now we've got the 4-weight offset again, so we can just quickly change this back to the way it was. So we've got a slight 4-weight offset there. So we can just strip a bit off the foredeck if we want. That's not massively important, the foredeck isn't. So a 0.2 is perfectly acceptable. Okay, so this is basically the ideal armoured cruiser ship now that we've added on the torpedoes and some 5-inch guns. So now we can just gradually strip off some of the other stats, armour stats, just to accommodate the new weight. And there we go. Okay, so that is basically the ideal armoured cruiser design. Now, if you had access to full weight displacement, then you could add some of these protection modules on, just to keep it alive a bit longer. You could possibly put these back up again, these 3 stats. But I wouldn't really change anything else about the ship, other than if you were going to increase the displacement, it might enable you to put another main gun up front. So that would probably be the only thing that I'd change about the ship itself. Okay, so from here now, you've got your transport protecting and power projection ship. You've got your workhorse. Now you could, if you wanted, build a torpedo threat of your own, so a destroyer or a cheap light cruiser with heavy armour. But really, these aren't particularly necessary, as long as you have torpedoes on your armoured cruiser. So you should be alright with torpedoes on your armoured cruiser doing all the torpedo work. But if you did want to take a destroyer, then by all means take a destroyer and take it with 3 torpedo decks. You're going to want one at the front so you can fire forward, and then the 2 at the back, you want them close up behind something. So say for example here, you have them close up behind this. That way they can't fire forward and they don't fire in the same direction. So if they were both in the middle, they would both fire left or both fire right. Well, you don't particularly want all your torpedoes firing off at the same time. You want to be able to fire in 3 different directions rather than all of them firing off at the same time. So if that wasn't facing forward and it was just in the middle, and all of these were just in the middle, as soon as you turn, all 9 of your torpedoes are going to fire off at the same time, and more than likely if one of them misses, they're all going to miss. Where if you have them set up like this, then you've got 3 chances that a torpedo is going to hit this way. Much better off. Okay, that's about it really for the ship designs. So I'm not going to bother with these torpedo boats. I'll just demonstrate these 2 ships, because these are where you're basically going to win the fight. So this one is a bit of an exploit, but I will build it just to show you the power projection. This one's just a base model without the torpedoes and the secondary fire guns, so we can get rid of Earther. I think that got rid of it. Did I need to delete it in here? Nope. Okay, so that got rid of that. So what we're going to do, we're going to build one of these, and then the rest of them are going to be just the plain ordinary one. As you can see, it's 4 million cheaper, this exploit one is. So now what I would do is match what they've got. So they've got 7 BC and BB, so that's what I'd go for. So I've already just bought one, so I'd buy another 6. And they've got 9 and 15 CA and CL, so 24. So you're probably not going to be able to afford 24. You can just about almost afford it. So because these are the ships that are going to be doing all your work, you are going to lose some of them. But they're not the ones that are going to be providing you with the power projection. So if you're really concerned about the power projection and losing transports, you would buy more of these battleships. So what we're going to do is buy a couple more of these battleships and then spend the remainder on these heavy cruisers. Okay, now you're always fighting in the North Sea in this campaign, so you never want anything in the Baltic Sea as the Germans, and you never want anything in the English Channel or the Irish Sea as the British. So as the British, you want them in these 5 ports, and as the Germans, you want them in these 5 ports. So Emden's got 356. Wilhelmshaven's got 250 and Bremen's got 160. So I think that should be alright like that. Okay, so now that's just over, unfortunately. So now we've got a decent enough power projection to look after our North Sea transport convoys. And we've got long range ships and short range ships, so that's all you really need. If we have a look at the finances, we have enough finances to almost max out everything. So if you're doing a a proper campaign, a grand campaign, you'd also want this. So you're only 3 million over, so you can just drop that by a tiny little fraction, 6%, and you still got enough monthly balance to cover everything. Now, you don't particularly want everything in sea control straight away, because that'll just eat up your finances. So what I suggest is keep everyone in beam to begin with. Then, as you start earning victory points and losing ships and getting more, basically, as you lose ships, your monthly balance, you're going to have more monthly balance to spend. So once you start getting towards the 8 million mark, it's around about that anyway, you can then put your entire army into sea control. So if we have a look now, $11 million. So once you get around 11 million, you can then put your entire army into sea control. But I'd either do all sea control or non-sea control. I wouldn't bother doing a mix if I were you. So yeah, that should be enough enough power projection to protect against your convoy raids. And you've got the loadout to be able to deal with enemy battleships and enemy light ships, torpedo threats. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to show you how I would build out my force to start a German campaign. So I hope this has been helpful, guys. That's pretty much the end of the video, but if you want to just carry on to see what happens, I'm just going to auto-resolve a few turns. But also I want to, just before I end the video, I'm going to see what the difference in the power projection is of these two battleships. But I'll do that right at the end of the video. So we lost one transport ship. We got a favourable convoy raid here. So I'm not going to do the missions, but obviously you would have won that mission. Oops. Well, that's my fault. Right, well, that's not a bad thing that that's happened, because it's been able to show something that I've just mentioned. Ah, that's GDP minus 10%. Naval budget plus 1%. Right, I read it wrong. So basically, our finances have just absolutely shot through the roof. And it only cost a little bit of naval prestige and a tiny bit of unrest. So it's not actually a bad thing that you you do that right at the start of the game, because it's not gonna affect anything really. These don't have a cumulative effect as far as I'm aware. So as you can see, we've only lost one transport in the North Sea so far. We've still only lost one transport in the North Sea so far. So I think we lost them because we just lost that port battle. But let's just assume that that was just normal transport losses. So we've lost 3 so far. So we've lost 7 now. So we did take a nasty hit on that, but that might have been because of the mission again. We have lost 4, so it probably wasn't because of the mission. So that's 11 so far. 12. So in a year, we've lost 12 transports. So it works out at 1 a month. Now, if we have a look at our finances, we've gone higher than 100%. So this loadout was enough to be able to increase our transport capacity over a year, sorry, rather than reduce it. So that's a perfectly acceptable number, losing on average 1 a month. Now I just want to see, before I end the video, how much power projection each of these 2 battleships give. So we get 10,329. $4,700. So that was 4,700 and 5,600. So they work out virtually the same in cost for power projection. So either way is perfectly acceptable, whether you want to go for the exploit way and have more deck armor, or if you just want to use the ordinary ship, which has got protection all round. So yeah, there we go. That pretty much wraps up how I would build out my fleet for a German campaign, for any campaign basically, but it highlights it during the German campaign for you to test for yourself. So yeah, the only other thing is when ships get damaged, they quite often go to these 2 ports and this one. So you just want to keep moving them to the North Sea. And that pretty much covers everything, I think, guys. So thanks for watching, take care, and I'll see you soon.